Okay, today I want to go over how to properly cite your sources, right? And I want to go into sort of two and then maybe one more. So how to cite after a paraphrase, which is when you use the article's ideas, but you convert it into your own words. And then when you do a direct quotation using their ideas and their exact words. So for the sake of this, I have the article. Here's the article where I'm kind of taking my information from. So this is sort of the original source here. I have my Noodle tools where I have already cited it. And if you need to know how to cite, there's a previous video on that. And then here I have my work. Now, for what it's worth, this actually isn't a very good paraphrase. This is just a copy and paste from here. So I didn't really rewrite it, but in a proper paraphrase, you're rewriting it. So you're sort of reading a couple of things and then you're just like, well, I'm going to form it into my own words, but I'm clearly taking the information from here. So what you can do with the paraphrase is every time you use their ideas, but you put it into their words, you have to cite it still, right? So in this case, you can look at it. There's no quotes associated with it because it's not their exact words, but I took this idea. And particular to this one, I wrote a couple of sentences in a row where it's all taken from this article. So where do I cite? You don't necessarily, in this case, have to cite after every single sentence, right? And you can see here, there's one sentence here, there's another sentence there, and there's another sentence here. So if you kind of have three in a row, you just have to cite at the end here. So how do you cite? Well, you basically put the author in parentheses and then within the sentence kind of thing. And I'll show you in a second. So one is, you'll get this pretty quickly, but lean on the generator if you don't know. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to go in text reference. So Noodle tool sources, you have it. This is the proper source. You go to in text reference and then you have there are no page numbers. This is the Justine Hunter article. So you go here, there's nothing, and then it basically does that, and then you can sort of copy and paste that over. I think this is fairly straightforward, but there are some subtleties to it. The first thing is it should go like this, right? There is actually no space here. It is space, parentheses, author, close parentheses, and period. This is the biggest factor. This is what I get most of all, is the period must be outside of the sentence, right? Period is on the outside of the sentence. The period is not here, right? Sometimes I get something like this. Incorrect. Sometimes I get kind of like the double period. Nope, it's like that. Single quote, blah, blah, blah. If you are kind of, I mean, now you get kind of the idea. And if you're a little bit worried and you're just like, oh, you know, I'm going to insert some analysis in here, so therefore I have to kind of quote these sentences together, you just simply write it in. And then you're in the plagiarism free zone, which is really where you completely want to be. So that's how you do this one. It's the same thing here. So this is a quote, right? Just days before the anti-pipeline, you know, say I have here, you know, but I wrote here, so but what occurred was, and then quote, put it up here, and then this is an exact quote. So by the way, I changed that, right? Because now this is changed mid-sentence, I changed the capitalization, then quote, 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 and then you sort of follow quote here. Now you do have to cite this again, and again the period comes outside, so you end that, you put this space, and then it's Hunter again, right? And then you put it like that. Again, notice that the period is on the outside. I removed it. There are variations, like what if this is an exclamation? I actually then think you sort of put it like this, but 95% of the time you're just doing a period and you just put it on the outside there, right? So make sure that you're sort of following this. The last thing is, well, how to quote within a quote, right? So this is actually directly from, this is a bit up to you, right? So if you just wanted, say a little bit, like let's just say you wanted to do this, technically the way that you do this is you do big quotes then small quotes. So what you would do is if you're quoting a quote, you can just do, you can do it one way, which is this. So it's like double quote, and then you put the single quote in, and then the same thing here, single quote, and then you could say she stated, and then you put the author thing there. But if you're actually quoting the exact quotes, then you don't actually even need those. You don't need the single quotes. It's only like when it really is sort of inside. And so this is perfectly fine. But let's just say you wanted to quote something like this. So if you put the quote up here, then, because this is all verbatim, Mrs. Robson's, so you say something like, later on, Miss Robinson said in an interview, and then this becomes the single quote, and then you do kind of the single quote to end that thing, and then the double quote, and then you have Hunter there. Does that make sense? Right? So it's like this quote now becomes the sort of evidence thing rather than the speaker's voice, and then you just switch. And then if you want to know what happens when there's a quote within a quote within a quote, you just keep on switching. So it's double quotes, single quotes, and then double quotes, blah, 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 that kind of stuff. All right, so now you have properly cited your stuff. And once you properly cite, it's all fine. So certain variations. You probably figured out now that it's just really the author's last name that you just have to put in parentheses. But what if there is no author given, right? So I'm going to go into this. Let's just say here's, you get some web pages like this, especially informative web pages where there's no author given. So what then do you do? The real answer is you use a shortened version of the title, right? But let's just say you don't know that, or it's weird or whatever. I would just say you go back to the generator, right? And then so now we have no author. How do I cite this stuff? You go to options, you go to in-text reference, and then you see it's this outside of pipeline. And you can see how they've even contracted it. So that's what you would put in quotations as well, because it's articles and then there's no page number. So it actually looks like that without the space. And just follow it, right? So whatever it gives you. What if there's multiple authors? What if there's, the whole thing? Just let the generator do it, right? If you have multiple authors, it'll tell you that as well. So we're going to go Justine Hunter, Hunter, and then let's just say this person here, Daryl Dick, is also an author. So we are then going to add a contributor, and I'm going to go Daryl. It's 2 R's, Daryl, and then D-Y-C-K, I think. Yeah, and then let's just say that's it, right? So then I save it. Okay, there's 2 authors. What do I do? Again, you just go into the in-text reference, and then it tells you, right? And you're just like, okay, that's actually. And then what if there's 3? What if there's 4? You'll do like the et al kind of thing. All right, last bit. Now you want to export your works cited. So print export to Google Docs is like kind of hit and miss. So I always just print export to Word. So here it is. It comes down. You sort of open it up, and then it is now perfectly formatted, right? And so no left justification, no center, just whatever. You just kind of, you get this, you copy and paste, you bring it over, you make sure it's on a new thing, and then you go like that. Oh, no, that's not what you do. Anyways, you get the idea.